I wasn't supposed to hear her voice tonight. But when my phone lit up with her name, 11:30, quiet street outside my apartment, the kind of hour where mistakes don't sound like mistakes, I picked up. She didn't say hello, didn't even breathe for a few seconds. Then her words came out, almost cracked. I didn't mean to call you. I should have laughed, maybe told her it was fine, that she could go back to whatever glass of wine or restless thought had pulled my number from her phone. Instead, I found myself saying what I knew I shouldn't. But you wanted me here anyway. Silence. Then a click. Call ended. Which is how I ended up standing on her porch 20 minutes later, jacket half-zipped, hands useless in my pockets. The house looked asleep, curtains drawn, a soft lamp glowing behind the frosted glass of her front door. I knocked once, light, careful. When she opened, she wasn't dressed for company. Bare feet, a long sweater hanging off one shoulder, hair not arranged like usual. She didn't meet my eyes right away. You shouldn't have come, she said, voice quiet. Then why'd you open the door? I asked. That almost smile she gave wasn't really a smile. More like she'd been caught holding something fragile and didn't know whether to hide it or let it drop. I stepped inside before she could answer. The living room was warm, faint smell of lavender from a candle burning down to its last inch. On the coffee table, an untouched glass of red sat beside an empty one, like she'd been waiting for someone who never arrived, or maybe waiting without admitting she was. She sat down on the couch, tucking her knees under her, like she needed the shape of herself small. I stayed standing, hovering, because I didn't know where to belong in her space. You look tired, I said, the words spilling before I could check them. She laughed once, too sharp. That's just another way of saying old. That's not what I meant. I know, she whispered, softer this time, eyes fixed on the candle flame. Her fingers toyed with the rim of the wine glass, turning it slowly as if even that small motion gave her something to do with her hands. I wanted to say something real, something to cut through the weight between us. But all I managed was, you can't call me at midnight and expect me not to show up. Her eyes lifted, finally catching mine. Longer than they should have, long enough that I felt the words she wasn't saying press against my chest. You're too young to understand, she murmured. Maybe, I admitted. But I'm here. Her lips parted like she might argue, but nothing came. Just a quiet exhale, the kind that felt more like surrender than relief. The room grew still. I noticed the clock ticking on the wall, the faint hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen, the way her ankle brushed against the couch cushion, restless. Every detail pressed itself into me, too vivid to ignore. Then, just when I thought she'd send me away, she leaned back and whispered, almost to herself, I don't know what I'm doing. And before I could answer, the doorbell rang. The bell rang again, louder this time. She stood up too quickly, nearly spilling the wine. Her hand brushed my sleeve as she steadied herself, barely a second, but enough for my skin to remember it long after she pulled away. Stay here, she said. Her voice was firm, though her steps toward the door weren't. I caught the faintest tremor in her hand when she reached for the knob. Through the glass, I glimpsed a man. Older, mid-50s, holding a jacket over one arm, his posture too familiar with this doorstep. She slipped outside, closing the door behind her before I could hear a word. The muffled exchange lasted maybe 2 minutes. Low tones, hers hurried, his more weighted. Then, a forced laugh, his, not hers. Finally, the crunch of retreating footsteps, a car engine starting. She came back in, face composed but colorless. Work friend, she said, answering the question I hadn't asked. I wanted to believe her. Almost did. She sank back onto the couch, shoulders stiff now. I stayed standing, not sure if I was part of the room anymore. You've got someone, I said finally. It wasn't really a question. Her head turned sharply, eyes catching mine. For a moment, I thought she'd deny it. Instead, she just sighed. Had. Maybe still do. It's complicated. The word lingered between us, heavy. I thought of the stories she'd let slip before, how she'd married too young, how years blurred into roles she never chose. Wife, mother, caretaker. She rarely talked about herself outside of those titles. But tonight, with her sweater sliding down one shoulder and that candlelight softening the lines around her eyes, she looked less like someone's wife and more like someone who wanted to be seen. I'm not proud of this, she said, almost inaudible. I sat down finally, closer than I should have. Then why call me? Her lips parted, then closed again. She pressed her palm to her forehead, shaking her head as though the words were too dangerous to name. You're different, she whispered at last. Different. The word dug into me. Not better, not safer, just different. But it was enough to keep me from leaving. My mind rebelled. She's twice your age. She's attached. This isn't a future. But the air between us felt like a wire pulled too tight, daring one wrong move to snap. You shouldn't look at me like that, she murmured without lifting her eyes. How am I looking? Her hand twitched on her knee, fingers curling in, then flattening again. Finally, she let her gaze climb up, meeting mine fully. Like you don't see the years. Like I'm still. She stopped, biting the inside of her lip. Still what? I asked. Her answer didn't come in words. Instead, her hand drifted across the cushion, stopping just an inch from mine. Not touching. Not yet. But the space between our fingers burned hotter than any touch could. I didn't move closer. Neither did she. But the silence said more than we could dare to. The space between our hands stayed charged, unbearable. I was 1 inch away from closing it when her phone buzzed on the coffee table. The sound jolted her. She snatched it up before I could even glance at the screen, thumb covering the caller ID. Her whole posture changed, shoulders tight, jaw clenched. I should take this, she muttered. She turned away, pressing the phone to her ear, voice low but strained. Yes, I know. I said I'd be home soon. A pause. Then, softer, almost pleading, please, not tonight. She ended the call quickly, as if afraid I'd heard too much. But I had. Your husband, I said. She didn't answer, just rubbed her temples like the word itself was too loud. I shouldn't be here, I whispered, though my body stayed planted next to hers. No, she agreed. Then, quieter. But you are. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was filled with everything neither of us could admit aloud. Her hand trembled when she set the phone down. She noticed me watching and pulled her sweater tighter, like fabric could shield her from what was happening. You should go, she said, though her voice wavered. I stood. She followed, walking me toward the door. But at the threshold, we stopped. Too close. The faint scent of her lavender candle clung to her skin, mixing with the wine on her breath. I leaned in before I could stop myself. Close enough to feel her inhale catch. Close enough that one wrong tilt would have made the decision for both of us. Her eyes shut for a heartbeat, then opened again, steady, clear. She placed her palm flat against my chest, not pushing me away, not pulling me closer, just holding me there, suspended. This can't happen, she said. But her hand didn't move. I covered it with mine. Her fingers tightened, almost imperceptibly. My pulse hammered under her touch, and I knew she felt it. A sudden knock shattered the moment. She jerked back, hand gone, eyes wide with alarm. The knock came again, harder this time. Who? I started. My daughter, she hissed, panic flickering across her face. She has a key. My stomach dropped. She shoved me toward the hallway. Go, kitchen, back door. Now. I didn't argue. My footsteps were too loud against the hardwood, my heartbeat even louder. Behind me, I heard her call out, forcing brightness into her tone. 1 second. I reached the back door just as keys rattled in the front lock. For a split second, I froze, looking back through the hall. She glanced over her shoulder at me. Just a glance, but it carried everything. Regret, fear, the ache of something unfinished. Then I slipped out into the night, leaving the door clicking shut behind me. The cool air hit me hard, but not as hard as the truth. I couldn't stay away, and she knew it. I avoided her for 3 days. Not because I wanted to, but because every time I picked up my phone, the memory of her hand on my chest and the sound of keys in her front door came rushing back. Still, on the 4th night, she texted, "Can we talk?" I didn't think. I just went. Her house was darker this time. No candles, just the glow of a single lamp in the corner. She stood by the window, arms crossed, like she'd been rehearsing a speech she already knew would fall apart. You shouldn't be here, she said. You're the one who asked. I answered, too sharp. Her eyes flashed, hurt or anger, I couldn't tell. I made a mistake calling you. You keep saying that. I snapped, stepping closer. But you don't mean it. She drew in a shaky breath. You're too young. You don't understand what this could destroy. I understand enough, I said. You wouldn't keep opening the door if you didn't want me here. That silenced her. For a moment, the only sound was the rain starting against the window, a soft patter that grew louder with every second. Finally, she spoke. Do you know what it's like to give half your life to someone and realize you've disappeared inside it? I swallowed hard. No, she shook her head, almost laughing at herself. Of course you don't. You still think love is supposed to fix everything. I know better. Her voice cracked on that last word, and I hated that I wanted to close the distance, hated how much her vulnerability pulled me in. You're not invisible to me, I said quietly. Her gaze flicked up, startled, like she hadn't expected kindness from me, only desire. That look broke something open. She turned away, pressing her palms to the window pane as if the cool glass could steady her. I can't do this, she whispered. But I was already moving. You already are, I said, close enough now that my reflection stood behind hers in the window. Her breath fogged the glass. I could see her shoulders rising, falling, too fast. She squeezed her eyes shut. If my daughter knew, if he knew. I don't care, I said before I could stop myself. I can't stop thinking about you. That admission hung between us like lightning waiting for thunder. She spun around then, eyes blazing, not soft, not ashamed, but desperate. Do you think I don't? She hissed. You're all I think about. And it's wrong. It's so wrong. We stared at each other, both breathing too hard, both cornered by something neither of us could name without breaking everything. Then the power flickered. The storm outside cut the lights for half a second, plunging the room into sudden darkness before the lamp hummed back to life. In that heartbeat of shadow, we moved, closer than we'd ever been, faces just inches apart. Her hand hovered near my jaw, mine near her waist. One more breath, one more inch, and there'd be no going back. We were inches away, heat, breath, everything tilting toward the moment neither of us could take back, when her phone buzzed again. She froze. I thought she'd ignore it. But the screen lit up, and her face drained of color. It wasn't her husband. It was her daughter. 3 words on the notification preview, glowing like fire. I saw you. My stomach dropped. She grabbed the phone, pressing it tight to her chest, as if she could erase what I'd just read. Tell me that's not. I started. She cut me off. It's nothing. Don't look at me like that. Her hands were trembling so badly, she nearly dropped the phone. She tried calling back, but it went straight to voicemail. Her breathing quickened, shallow and uneven. She was at the window. I whispered, realization hitting. She saw us. Her eyes snapped to mine, wide with something between terror and despair. You need to go? Now. I took a step closer instead. Running won't fix this. You don't understand, she hissed. If she tells him, if she tells anyone. Her voice broke, and for the first time, she didn't look older, wiser, untouchable. She looked young, frightened, cornered, raw. I reached for her hand, but she pulled it away, pacing the room like a trapped animal. This is my life, she whispered. My marriage, my daughter, my name in this town. One rumor, one slip, and it's all gone. I swallowed hard. And what about me? You think this is easy for me? Pretending I don't want you every second. Her eyes flashed, wet and furious. You'll move on. You're 25. You'll forget me in a year. That's not true. My voice came out sharper than I intended. You think I'd risk this? Risk you, if I could forget? The storm rattled the windows. Her shoulders sagged, as though the weight of the world had just landed on them. She sat down heavily, head in her hands. What have I done? She murmured. I knelt in front of her, resisting the urge to touch her again. We can figure this out. Together. She shook her head, laughing bitterly through tears. Together? You don't even know the half of it. Something in her tone chilled me. What do you mean? Her gaze lifted, meeting mine with an intensity that hollowed me out. He already suspects. That's why he showed up the other night. He's been checking my phone, asking questions. He knows something's off. The room tilted. What I thought was dangerous before now felt lethal. Before I could respond, the front door opened. Her daughter's voice carried in, sharp and cutting. Mom? We both froze. She stood slowly, wiping her face, pulling her sweater tight like armor. She shot me one last, frantic look, half warning, half plea. Then footsteps drew closer, and the door to the living room began to creak open. The door opened fully, and her daughter stood there, jeans, damp hair from the rain, eyes sharp enough to cut glass. She looked from me to her mother, then back again, and I knew instantly. She hadn't just guessed. She knew. Seriously, Mom? Her voice cracked with anger and disbelief. He's my age. The words hit harder than any fist could have. Her mother tried to steady herself, chin lifting as though composure could undo what was already broken. It's not what you think. Her daughter laughed bitterly. Then tell me, what is it? Silence. I stepped forward, throat dry, but she shot me a look that froze me in place. This wasn't my battle to fight. Finally, she spoke, voice trembling. I made a mistake. Her daughter's jaw tightened. A mistake you let into our house. At night. While Dad. She stopped herself, shaking her head. I don't even want to know. The storm outside thudded against the windows, the sound filling the hollow space between us. I couldn't stand it anymore. It's not just her, I blurted. Both of them turned toward me, startled. My pulse pounded in my throat. I came here because I wanted to. Because I care about her. The daughter scoffed. You care? You don't even know her. She broke off, voice lowering. She's falling apart, and you're just making it worse. Her mother flinched, the words slicing deeper than intended. I looked at her then, really looked. The lines around her eyes, the weight in her shoulders, the fight in her that was always half hidden. And I realized, this wasn't just about desire. This was about someone who had been invisible too long, finally being seen. She deserves more than being invisible, I said softly. Her daughter stared at me, then at her mother. And for a second, her expression faltered, confusion, hurt, maybe even recognition. But the moment passed. She grabbed her backpack from the chair. I can't stay here tonight. Wait. Her mother pleaded, stepping forward. But the door slammed before she could finish. The house fell into silence, except for the rain. She stood there, hands still half raised, tears threatening but unshed. When she turned to me, her face was stripped bare, no defenses, no pretense. This is going to ruin everything, she whispered. I crossed the room slowly, stopping just close enough for her to feel my presence, but not trapped by it. Or it could be the first honest thing either of us has done in a long time. Her eyes searched mine, desperate, uncertain. For once, I didn't try to close the distance. I just let the truth hang between us, heavy but real. And then, almost imperceptibly, she reached for my hand. Her fingers tightened around mine like someone holding on at the edge of a cliff. We can't undo this, she said. No, I agreed. But maybe we don't need to. The storm rattled on, and for the first time, neither of us looked away. The storm had passed by morning. I woke on her couch, stiff from the way I'd slept, but still replaying the moment she'd taken my hand. She wasn't beside me. For a second, I thought she'd vanished, slipped back into the life she was supposed to live, leaving me behind like a bad dream. But then I saw her through the window, standing in the backyard barefoot, sweater draped around her like a shield. The sun was breaking through gray clouds, pale light catching on her hair. I stepped outside quietly. The grass was damp, the air cool, but it smelled clean, like everything had been washed raw. You didn't sleep much, I said. She smiled faintly, though her eyes were tired. Too much on my mind. Her daughter, her husband, the risks, all the things pressing down on her. And me. I thought you might regret it, I admitted. She turned toward me slowly. I do. And I don't. I waited. She looked down at her hands, twisting her ring absent-mindedly. I can't pretend last night didn't happen. She saw. He suspects. Maybe it's already too late. Her voice trembled, but she didn't cry. Not this time. I stepped closer. So what do we do? Her answer was quiet, almost fragile. We stop lying. To them. To ourselves. It wasn't a promise of forever. It wasn't even a plan. But it was the first thing that felt real. She finally slipped the ring off her finger, stared at it, then placed it gently in her pocket. I don't know what tomorrow looks like, she said. I might lose everything. You won't lose me, I said. She gave me a look then, half doubt, half gratitude. And for the first time, I saw her without the armor of guilt or fear. Just a woman choosing something terrifying because she wanted it. When she leaned into me, it wasn't desperate. It wasn't rushed. It was steady, certain, a kiss that felt less like breaking rules and more like finally telling the truth. We stayed that way for a long moment. The world hushed around us. Eventually, she pulled back. This doesn't solve anything. I know, I said, brushing my thumb across her hand. But it's a start. Her daughter would come home. Her husband would ask questions. People would talk. The future was a cliff edge waiting for both of us. But in that morning light, After too many nights of silence and denial, we weren't hiding anymore. And somehow, that felt enough. Did you enjoy the story? What kind of stories would you like to hear next?